able to name it. If you can look at something and name the waste, then you can identify it and then you can start to do something about it. So this idea, these 7 types of waste, is what Toyota has taught us, what the Aaron's company has taught us as we've looked at these and worked with them. But these 7 things, this idea of transportation, meaning it doesn't only mean moving things on the road or getting out there in the gas stations or those type of things. It could be transporting up and down the steps is transportation waste, or transporting something, or you've all mentioned it, between buildings is waste, or between departments. And think about where transportation waste. If you were to look at that at your process map, would you see transportation waste in it? That you just drew? Probably. It's there. But the idea of inventory waste. What would inventory waste be in our industry?
Wasted hours.
Wasted hours, yeah, that's a beautiful thought on it. That's a great way to look at it. Wasted hours. What else?
Wasted copies of additional publications.
Yeah, how many have some back room closets that when you open it up, out just falls all of these things that you thought you were going to use and aren't using? No. And when you put a dollar value to it, there's probably $1 or $2 sitting there. So inventory, and then motion waste. This happens in meaning if you're designers, they always need to reach for stuff, or they always need to go around things, or they need to move stuff to get to things, or they need to move it in the warehouse to move things and get to motion waste is happening all the time. How many have a little waiting waste that takes place in your real business? Yeah. What kind of waiting waste takes place?
Waiting to hear back from somebody.
To hear back from somebody.
For meetings to start.
For meetings, yeah. We're here early and waiting for meetings are late and starting. Great. What else? That just right down the line causes a bunch of different things. So waiting for information to come and plug it into it, or waiting for approvals to come back from the agency to the sales team that's in here, or from your client, from the client to the agency, and waiting for those approvals and to be able to stop and look at that. Now, we've got a choice. We can either accept that, because that's just the way it is, which is dangerous thinking, or we step back and say, where do we start to work on it? And how important would it be to say to an agency, hey, why don't you come on in? And we're going to sit down here in the magazine, and we're going to sit down and let's draw a process map on how we can improve the sharing of information between what you guys are doing out there, and so that way we can ensure that we get your ad placement perfect, and there's not the frustration that might happen between us each and every month as we're waiting on that. Would that be something worthy of doing? It's happening all the time in all kinds of industries where we have to get out of our silo and start partnering with all of those that are so important to us. So think about how that can apply. So the waiting waste that comes from it. And overproduction means doing things that just does not need to be done. Overproduction. Overprocessing means 2 people doing it instead of 1 person doing it. Or there's a lot of organizations, not so much anymore, but boy, you just see that they're just way overstaffed. They just got overstaffed. I really admire the organizations that are 3.5 people or 7 people or 8, and how much they just can still do. Now, cool thing in lean is no one ever gets fired because of a lean improvement. What would happen if somebody got let go because of a lean improvement? Nobody would want to make lean improvements, right? It could be our job. Now, if people leave, they may not be replaced. That's what you start watching happening with Aaron's corporation up there in Wisconsin. That's who we've learned the program from, and they just had a big impact on us. They were an $80 million company about 11 years ago with 1,100 people. And today, I think they're pushing $400 million with, listen to this, 1,100 people. Is that a good thing? Yeah, you bet. It means a lot to Brillion, Wisconsin, up there in that part of the world where so many people depend on them. So they've grown. They've been able to improve their capacity to serve. And then defects. Do you all have defects? What does that do to a process when oops, we missed that, or we missed an editorial fix or something along the line. So think about the defects, all of these things. When we can start to identify it, now in this Kaizen process, now we step back and say, okay, what's the simplest thing we can do to drive this waste out? Let's talk about meetings again. I'm going to show you